wish to address the court. They are first a member of the military who is my client's son, and he is Sergeant First Class Ronnie Murphy. He wishes to address the court on behalf of his dad.
Come on up, Mr. Murphy. You can address the court at the podium there. Thank you for coming forward today.
Go ahead. Your Honor, Councilman, and the families that are here today. First and foremost, I would like to send my condolences to the family. There's no way. This is just a bad situation. In this situation, everyone loses. That's the loudest I can go. Everyone loses. I don't know if this microphone will help. Just over there. Okay. Usually in a situation, you get an opportunity to fix it, Your Honor. This situation cannot be fixed. So everything that my father has done throughout his life is gone. Nobody cares about whatever he's done positive because of this big negative. His lawyer said 10 seconds of carelessness. I think it's unfair to take a part out of somebody's life and judge them. If we could go back prior to this accident, who is he to everyone? I've served over 20 years in the military. I can remember calling my father from Iraq, talking to my father, and he talked about him driving the bus, these kids, this, that. Me growing up, my father volunteering coached softball to girls for over 20, 30 years in the community. No criminal history, nothing. This situation right here is going to be what he is remembered for. And I think that's unfair. Is it unfair to the family who lost someone? Totally, it's unfair. This situation is unfair. But my father's not going to speak. So I'm speaking for him. And at this point, all he can do is throw himself on the mercy of the court and ask for whatever the best possible situation. 79 years old, where do we go from here? There is no time to fix the situation and men. It's just a bad situation. My heart goes out to the families. I've lost loved ones, and I know it's hard for someone that has not lost someone to tell you they know what you're going through, but I do. I lost my mother. My father is the only thing I have left. Today, I'm gonna lose my father. But I understand everybody here has lost somebody. But I also understand that my father did nothing on purpose to harm nobody, ever. I've never, ever seen or heard him even talk about harming anyone. You don't go through 79 years and not go to jail, not have problems in court and issues. That doesn't happen. He worked, and he worked until he got to a point where this is a broken man. We have people that can move, have all their beings, and won't get up and go work. This man has been working since he was able to work. In this situation is when he stops, because he's too old. Your Honor, in my closing remarks, I just ask you to have mercy on my father. That's a good man. That's a good man because he produced a good man. I know I'm a good man because I was raised by one. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Murphy. I appreciate you coming to court, first of all. I appreciate your service to our country for such a long period of time.
Yes, sir.
20 years is a long.
Yes, sir.
20 years.
24 years.
Thank you very much for your service. It's much appreciated.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate those comments very much.
All right. If I'm not mistaken, I'll be followed by,
Yes, this is what we just present Kevin Walters. He is Mr. Muldrow's nephew to speak on this behalf. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. Testing 1, 2.
Go ahead, we can hear you. Thank you.
I'd like to say good morning to Your Honor, to the press, family, friends, members of the courtroom, and anyone that has been impacted by the events of May 17th, 2018. I was asked to come and speak on behalf of the entire family, and I wanted to share a few things before I give my personal sentiment. The first is a letter from my uncle's pastor. Mount Zion Fire Baptized Holiness Church of God of the Americas, Jersey City, New Jersey. Pastors Elder Willie J. Clark. He states, to the Honorable Judge, I have known Hudy Muldrow for over 20 years. He has been a member of the church for over 10 years. And I believe Hudy Muldrow to be an honest person and a valued member of the church and the community. He served on the church trustee board, drove the church van, and was a faithful member of the maintenance team. He's always been willing to help in every capacity that was needed in the church, and at times he would use his own vehicle to transport members to and from. I hope that this letter will give an idea of his character and help him get a second chance. Sincerely, Elder Willie J. Clark, Pastor. The second letter I would like to read is from his niece. She writes, good morning, Your Honor. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to allow my cousin, that would be me, to read this letter for me today. As I sit and I write, tears are rolling down my face. I reflect on my time spent with my uncle, and through tears it brings a smile to my face. All of my life, my uncle has been an honorable, respectable, understanding, compassionate, God-fearing man with a heart of gold, never taking a drink, a smoke, or using a drug, never causing a day of trouble in his life. Yet, unfortunately, we find ourselves here today. Why this happened, none of us can answer. We just know that God has a plan, although we may not know what that is right now. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King wrote some of his best work while he was confined. I pray that my uncle continue to write his story. Dear uncle, this is not goodbye. She encourages you to keep your head up, and when you have done all you can do to stand, stand therefore. She writes that her uncle is an awesome man, a great man, a proud man, a giant among men. She loves you, we love you, always and forever, on behalf of her mother, her brother and sisters, and the rest of the family. And Your Honor, I'd like to present my personal comments. Again, let me start by offering the condolences to the family. There's no words, no actions that can change the events that have happened. Sincerely, my uncle would have to concede that this was an unfortunate event. And I believe if he could address you personally, he would definitely offer any apologies that he could, ask for your forgiveness, your understanding, and that this was a human error, not malicious intent. Often when I would call him throughout this nearly 2 years, he would tell me, I'm having trouble sleeping. And to some degree, I think he wanted me to believe it was due to the operations that he went through after the accident. But I knew, knowing him the way that I do, he was toiling and pacing over this incident and the families that were lost. Attorney Matthew Reisick mentioned the 2 Bibles. I'm sure he was reading his scriptures and praying and hoping that God could do something to make this grief pass in a more comforting way. Hudy is one of 20 children. You heard me correctly, 20 children. He made his way from South Carolina to New York as a teenager, and he found work as a farmer. He said to me he didn't come all the way from South Carolina as a farmer to come to New York and be a farmer. And he found himself being a sewing machine operator. From then he went on to be promoted to a foreman and a custodial worker, superintendent, a cook, a singer, a drummer, and as you know, a bus driver. Hudy is the father of 12 children and the grandfather of 20 plus. He is modest, and I'm sure he wouldn't want me to tell you that, but that is a Herculean task to accomplish such a feat. His son, Ronnie, who spoke before me, drove through the night from South Carolina to be here on today, and that's a testament to what he means to him and how the rest of the family feels about him. My uncle loves children. In fact, that is why he and I are very close. I call him my uncle, but in fact, he is my grand uncle. He is the brother of my maternal grandmother. Over the years, he showered me personally with love and affection, attention, and he set a good example of what it means to be a good family member and to be there for others. Hudy spent many years coaching children, as Ronnie talked about, and he taught them to be good people as well. He coached his McDonald's softball team, and I believe they won back to back to back to back championships. I believe 7 in all. That not only talks about his ability as a good person, but his ability to influence others and to train them to be diligent and efficient, to work towards a common goal, to be disciplined. When my mother moved out of the house at 16, it was my uncle who helped her with her first apartment. When my mother married my father, her father had expired by that time. It was my uncle who walked her down the aisle. My uncle lent his vehicle, a Buick, 225. For those of you that remember, it was the deuce and a quarter, we called it back then. That was her wedding vehicle. He's always been a part of my life. And I don't want today to be the end of that connection. The etymology of his name, Hudy, comes with the understanding of being tough and to be fierce and not to give up. But as he sits there today, humbled, you may still see the tough exterior, but he's a man that deeply cares for others. And I know that he accepts the impact of his actions upon those that have been affected. Speaking of accident, it is defined as an unfortunate incident that happens unexpectedly and unintentionally, but usually results in injury or damage. My uncle would want you to know that the incidents that took place on May 17th was an accident. And I would say that he's definitely not guilty of DWI, but more of a DWA, driving while aged. I can remember in my own life believing that there are things that I could do. My reflexes were faster than they were in previous years. Recently I had promised my family we were leaving to go to a vacation, and I decided that I wanted to go out to till the lawn. I went out, I thought this would only take maybe an hour or two. I can get this done. I got out there for about 30 minutes. Before I knew it, it was my leg, my back, my this, my that. Sometimes age has a tendency to creep up on you, and it doesn't allow you to have the same mindset or reflexes that you would in prior years. If anything, I would say if my uncle did anything, it would be to rely on reflexes that maybe had deteriorated. I do not believe that any of his actions were intentional or even reckless. I would say to the court that, and to the people in attendance, that many of us may remember a time when we have blown through a yellow light or made a turn on red when the sign clearly said don't turn on red, or maybe drove a little faster than we should have. I think we're fortunate that we are still here today, and those people that may have been impacted are still here today. In my uncle's case, that is not what happened. His outcome resulted in 2 people losing their lives and others being injured. But I also like to point out that he was also one of the ones that was injured. When I looked at the accident and the photos, I don't know how he's still here. I try to make sense of it. I see that Governor Murphy put together a law that went into place. I don't know if that was the reason for all of this. I have no answers. Finally, in my closing, and I find it apropos that the trial has shifted so many times, but we find ourselves landed here today on Ash Wednesday, a time of reflection, a time of forgiveness, a time of consecration, a time to think about a power greater than ourselves. And I had 2 passages from the Bible came to mind. Abbreviated version of Psalms 23 and verse 4, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And verse 6 says, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. On today, Your Honor, that mercy is in your hands. I've seen how you've conducted the proceedings. I've seen you listen to the attorney's arguments. You've given direction, counsel. I believe you to be a fair man. This is one of those times where fairness would play. And I know that justice is what everyone is seeking, but I like to move justice to just us. If we would look at this as just us, human beings, one to another.
Yes.
This is an incident where someone made a mistake, and I think it should be judged according to that. My final scripture is taken from John chapter 8. And this talks about a woman who was caught in the act of adultery. Much attention is given to the woman, and she's brought before a crowd, and she's being judged. and they want to stone her. Personally, I always found that a little offensive because they never brought the man that was with her. But I digress. The end result is that they wanted to stone the woman. And Jesus speaks up and he says, "Let he that has no sin cast the first stone." And I say today, 10 seconds of carelessness may not be worth throwing stones at my uncle. Thank you.